Evidences, the Record and the Flood. Evidences is a 45-minute video produced by the Geoscience Research Institute in 1990. For those with access to the Evidences DVD, this presentation offers a summary with tips for choosing the most helpful sections for use in an elementary or middle school classroom. For those without access to the entire DVD, 4 individual clips from the DVD are available in separate presentations. The Evidences DVD would be especially valuable for use during Chapter 10 of either the 6th or 8th grade by design textbooks. We recommend showing the video in smaller chunks that correspond to certain sections in the textbook. Chapter 10 of the 6th grade textbook describes 7 different kinds of flood evidence. 4 of them correspond with the 4 segments of the Evidences DVD. Here's where to find each of the 4 segments, but there may be other parts of the DVD you may want to consider showing as well. The 4 video segments correspond with 4 of the flood evidences listed on page 377 of the 8th grade textbook as well. What follows is a summary of the various sections of the DVD so that you can select the parts that will be most helpful for your students. The introduction uses a tower made of blocks to illustrate how some blocks are more foundational than others. Some blocks can be removed without consequence. But if one of the bottom blocks is removed, the tower crumbles. The flood is compared to a foundational block in our belief system. If the flood didn't happen, our tower is in trouble. This video contains scientific evidence that is consistent with the flood and shows that our tower is built on a solid foundation. The introductory section also includes interviews with people on the street, asking whether they believe the biblical flood really happened. Flood stories from other cultures are mentioned, but no specific examples are given. And the point is made that written accounts can't prove the flood happened. We need more concrete evidence, like the kind of evidence we find in the rocks. Before showing the 4 sections that correspond with portions of the textbook, we recommend that you show this 2-minute segment, which gives a general introduction about how rock layers form, introduces some terms, and suggests that there's no way a flood could have happened without leaving evidence in the rocks. This section would also be helpful. It describes and illustrates in more detail how rocks are formed. The animation of layers being deposited and eroded is especially helpful. The next section focuses specifically on the Grand Canyon, including some great photography and more animations illustrating the formation of the Colorado Plateau. The transition to Evidence 1 appears quite dated. The point being made is that when scientists find something that doesn't seem to fit, it can encourage questions and research. This prepares the way for Evidence 1, which is the presence of marine fossils where we might not expect to find them, on land. You may want to consider skipping this portion of the DVD and explaining this point to your students yourself. We definitely recommend showing the next 4 segments to your class. This one corresponds with the section about ocean sediments on the continents on page 337. Veteran Adventist scientist Ariel Roth describes shells buried in a formation the size of Utah, but 800 miles from the nearest ocean, and concludes that at some time in the past it appears that the oceans covered the land. Evidence 2 corresponds to the section about widespread sedimentary deposits on pages 335 and 336 of the textbook. Ariel Roth uses helpful maps to describe 4 huge rock formations that each cover multiple states in the American Midwest. These formations provide evidence of deposition on a much larger scale than we see happening today. Evidence 3 is an especially interesting segment that corresponds to the section about turbidites on page 337. Using the story of a relatively modern earthquake, it explains what turbidity currents are and how turbidites form underwater. Ariel Roth examines turbidites found on the continents, which provide more evidence that the land was once covered with water. After a brief introduction where the host makes a handkerchief disappear, this section does a good job of demonstrating the lack of erosion described in the section called Flat Gaps on pages 337 and 338. Ariel Roth suggests rapid deposition during the worldwide flood as the explanation for the lack of erosion between these flat layers. This short segment is a great summary of the 4 kinds of evidence just described. This summary ends the part of the DVD that specifically corresponds to sections in Chapter 10 of the 6th and 8th grade books. The final section of the DVD describes a specific model for Noah's flood and would be a great supplement for anyone who wants to explore the topic beyond what is presented in the textbook. The introductory portion, using a remote control airplane, may seem a bit dated, but it helps to explain the idea of a model. Then the flood is described as more than just a rainstorm. The model is demonstrated with some interesting animations. And then the DVD ends by returning to the illustration of the block tower, and how if we build our faith on the Bible, that's one tower that's never going to fall. The Geoscience Research Institute is an official research institute of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It was founded in 1958 to advise the church on issues relating to science and faith. It is featured in the 5th grade by design textbook in the Science and Technology section at the end of Chapter 1. Visit their website to see what other resources are available.